The radio spoke to me before anyone else did. Not the neighbors. Not my landlord. Not even the damn coffee machine that usually spits out its daily insult. No. It was the old, dusty radio in the corner of my Brooklyn apartment that decided to tell me about love. And the worst part, it sounded like a confession from a man I'd never met. At first, I thought it was some pirate broadcast, maybe a late-night talk show bleeding through weak frequencies. But the voice low, rough in that quiet broken way, like someone who had smoked one too many cigarettes and carried too many regrets, called my name. My actual name. Evan. I froze, spoon clinking against the half-eaten cereal bowl. The radio crackled, its static swallowing silence whole. No one was in my apartment. Just me, the city's distant hum, and a voice that didn't belong. I moved to New York chasing something I couldn't even name. Maybe freedom. Maybe the chance to disappear in a crowd big enough to swallow every version of me I was running from. I ended up with a leaky ceiling, walls thinner than paper, and an old radio that refused to die, no matter how many times I unplugged it. Tonight, though, the damn thing decided to bleed secrets. You don't know me, the voice said, breathless, intimate. But I know you. I laughed sharp, nervous, ugly. Because who the hell says something like that? Outside of horror movies and stalker documentaries. But beneath the static, there was an ache, something raw that punched past my cynicism. And I hated that it pulled me in. Days blurred. I'd work, come home, and wait. Not for texts, not for calls, for the radio. It became a ritual. Around 11 p.m., when the city softened into restless silence, the voice would return. Sometimes it spoke about love, lonely, aching love. Other nights, it whispered regrets, like a man trapped between wanting to forget and needing to be remembered. And then, one night, it said something that shattered me. I think I'm falling for you, Evan. I dropped the glass in my hand. It shattered, echoing against the tiles like a curse. My heart was an animal in a cage, wild and clawing. Who are you? I demanded, as if the radio owed me an answer. Static. Just static. There are a million men in New York. A million stories. A million broken pieces of love scattered across sidewalks and subway seats. Why did mine have to bleed through a machine older than my parents'? I started noticing things. The way the voice's pauses matched my breathing. The way it seemed to know my silence. Whoever he was, he wasn't a stranger. He was too close, too sharp, too familiar. But here's the problem. I don't fall in love. I've built my life on not falling. And yet, when I closed my eyes, I could see him. Not his face, never that. But his presence. Tall. Maybe. Lean. Shoulders heavy with weight he never asked to carry. Eyes that dared to linger too long. Like mine did when I thought no one noticed. And it terrified me that I wanted to be seen. The first time I told my best friend Tyler about it, he nearly spat out his beer. Dude, that's either the creepiest shit I've ever heard or the most romantic. There's no in-between. I rolled my eyes, but the truth stuck in my throat. It feels real. Real. A voice in your radio. Next you'll tell me it crawls out like the Ring. But later that night, when the voice returned, it was softer, almost afraid. Don't tell anyone about me. And like an idiot, I promised. Weeks passed. I couldn't stop listening. I couldn't stop needing it. One evening, after too much whiskey and not enough sense, I spoke back. If you're real, if you're out there, meet me. Silence stretched so long I thought the connection broke. Then, I can't. Not yet. Why? Because once you see me, you won't want me. The words cut. Too sharp. Too close to something inside me I'd buried deep. And before I knew it, I whispered the truth I hadn't told anyone. Try me. The city felt different after that. Every man I passed on the subway. Every stranger's face on the street. I wondered if it was him. Was it the guy with the weary smile holding a paperback? The barista with ink stains on his fingers? The man across the street who lingered just a second too long before looking away? I was haunted. Obsessed. And somewhere, beneath the obsession, there was hope. That maybe love doesn't always arrive how you expect. Sometimes, comes through static. Through broken frequencies. Through someone unseen. Who somehow knows exactly how to reach you. But hope is dangerous. And love. Love is war in disguise. Because the night I finally caught his voice breaking raw. Trembling. Desperate, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't just a stranger. He was connected to me in a way I didn't understand. And I wasn't sure if that would save me or destroy me. The night after his voice cracked with sorrow, I didn't sleep. I left the radio on, waiting, as if the static itself might cradle me into dreams. It didn't. Instead, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I had swallowed a secret too heavy to keep down. By morning, the city was its usual beast, loud, unbothered, impatient. But I wasn't the same. Something in me was unraveling. The voice had become more than an obsession. It was oxygen. That afternoon, I skipped work. I took the train downtown, wandering through antique shops, flea markets, anywhere that sold radios like mine. I wanted answers. Maybe some clerk would laugh and tell me it was a common glitch. Some technical fluke. Maybe I was crazy. God, I almost hoped I was. But none of the radios looked like mine. None hummed with that same electric anticipation. Like they were holding a secret hostage. I returned home empty-handed. Angrier than I cared to admit. When the clock neared 11, I sat on the floor, legs crossed, eyes fixed on the machine like it owed me its life. The static came first. Then his voice, trembling but alive. You were gone today, he whispered. My chest tightened. You watch me. Pause. Then, I feel you. When you're not here, it's like silence. And silence kills me. I pressed my palms into my eyes until stars burst behind them. This is insane. You're not real. You can't be. But I am. And so are you. And I've never wanted anything more than the sound of you breathing through the dark. The honesty gutted me. It was too much. Too fast. And yet not enough. I wanted more. Tell me your name. I begged. A silence so heavy I thought the radio died. Then, Adrian. Adrian. The name wrapped itself around me like a chain. I whispered it under my breath all night, afraid I'd forget it by morning, afraid it would vanish like smoke, like the static that swallowed him whole when he was gone. Over the next week, he spoke more, in fragments, always after 11, always with hesitation. He told me he liked the way rain smelled on hot asphalt, that he hated the sound of sirens, that he once wrote songs but never finished them. Little things, broken things, enough to stitch together a shadow of who he was. But shadows aren't enough. One night, I snapped. Adrian, if you care about me, you'll meet me. The silence stretched. Unbearable. I'm not free to, he said at last. Free to? What the hell does that even mean? I can't be seen. Not yet. You keep saying that. I growled. But I'm done with riddles. Either you're real, or I'm losing my mind. So prove it. The radio hissed, like it was breathing. Then, quietly, tomorrow, midnight, East River, under the Brooklyn Bridge. I barely breathed for 24 hours. I didn't tell Tyler. Didn't tell anyone. This wasn't something you shared. Not when it lived so fragile between real and impossible. At 11:50, I was already there. The river smelled of iron and salt. The city lights fractured on its black surface. People came and went above. But under the bridge, I was alone. Until I wasn't. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Tall. Lean. A hoodie pulled low. Hands stuffed in his pockets like the world itself might collapse if he opened them. I knew before he spoke. Evan. It was the voice. Raw. Quiet. Too human. My knees nearly gave out. You're real, he said, almost bitter. I told you. I took a step forward. He took one back. The distance between us was small, but it felt like a lifetime. Why me? I asked. His laugh was hollow. Because you were the only one who listened. We talked for hours, pacing the dark like ghosts who had finally found flesh. He wouldn't take down his hood, wouldn't step close enough for me to see his face clearly. But his voice was enough. His presence was enough. When the first light of dawn touched the river, he pulled away. I can't stay, he whispered. Why? My throat burned. What are you running from? Not what, he said. Who? And then he was gone. Days blurred into a fever. I searched for him everywhere in crowds, in coffee shops, in subway cars, but Adrian was a phantom. The radio returned to silence. I was drowning. Then, one night, when the loneliness turned sharp enough to carve me open, the static flared again. I shouldn't have met you. Adrian's voice broke. It makes it harder to leave. Then don't. I begged. Don't leave. I don't deserve you. Let me decide that. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd gone forever. Then, softly, you don't know what I've done. I didn't sleep after that. Couldn't. His words were a curse, chewing at the edges of my mind. What had he done? Why hide? Why me? One evening, Tyler cornered me. You're pale. Man, you look like hell. What's going on? I opened my mouth, ready to spill everything. But the promise I'd made didn't tell anyone clamped down like iron. Nothing. I lied. But the truth was burning me alive. 3 nights later, I returned to the bridge. Midnight. No promises. No invitation. Just desperation. And he was there. Adrian stood with his back to me, staring at the water like it had answers. His shoulders sagged, heavy with something I couldn't name. Adrian. I whispered. He flinched, turned halfway. His hood shadowed his face, but his voice was clear. You shouldn't be here. I couldn't stay away. His hands curled into fists. I told you I am not who you think I am. Then show me who you are, I said, stepping closer. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then he pulled back his hood, and the sight of him shattered me. His hood slipped back, and the world stilled. I don't know what I expected, some ordinary face. Maybe someone forgettable, someone I could walk away from. But Adrian wasn't ordinary. Sharp cheekbones, eyes like storms that had swallowed too much lightning, lips pressed into a line that trembled against the weight of secrets. He looked both older and younger than he was. like life had carved lines into him too soon and yet left parts of him untouched. My breath caught. "You're wrong for you," he cut in, almost begging me not to finish. But I couldn't stop staring. His face wasn't what made my chest ache. It was the look in his eyes, like he'd been starving his whole life and somehow, for some reason, I was food. "Why do you hide?" I whispered. Adrian's jaw clenched. "Because the world doesn't forgive men like me. And men like me." His eyes flicked up, locking with mine. Something in them softened, then burned. "Men like you are what keep me alive." The confession knocked the air out of me. We didn't move closer, though every cell in my body screamed for it. Instead, we sat on the cold concrete, shoulders nearly touching, letting the city hum above us. Adrian told me pieces. Never the whole picture, just shards. That he'd been in trouble. That people wanted things from him he couldn't give anymore. That his past was something heavy enough to crush anyone who stood too close. "You think I scare easy?" I muttered. "I don't think," he said, staring out at the water. "I know." "Then prove me wrong." He looked at me like I had asked him to leap off the bridge. The nights that followed blurred into a rhythm. I'd meet him under the bridge, and for hours, we'd trade words like contraband. He never came up to my apartment, never walked beside me in daylight. Always shadows, always midnight. It should have been unbearable, living in fragments. But somehow, the fragments were enough. He told me his favorite movie was one he'd never admitted to anyone, Dead Poets Society. He said he used to write songs, but they were too sad to sing. He laughed once, a real laugh, when I teased him about his terrible taste in pizza. And with every secret he gave, I gave him one of mine. The fears I never said out loud. The nights I felt invisible even in a crowded city. The truth about how lonely I really was. "You're braver than me," Adrian murmured once. "Brave?" I scoffed. "I'm just desperate." "Desperate men are the ones who change the world," he said softly. "But the world doesn't let fragile things stay untouched." One night, Adrian didn't show. I waited hours, pacing under the bridge until the sky bruised with dawn. Nothing. No voice on the radio. No sign of him in the shadows. Panic clawed at me. I scoured the streets for days, searching faces, listening for his voice. The silence was unbearable, louder than anything I'd ever heard. When he finally returned, it wasn't to the bridge. It was to the radio. "Evan." His voice cracked through the static, ragged and broken. "Don't look for me. Please. They're watching." My chest went cold. "Who?" "Adrian." "What's happening?" He sucked in a breath. "If I see you again, you'll get hurt." "Then let me get hurt." I snapped. "Let me in. Stop shutting me out." The silence that followed was brutal. Then, almost too soft to hear, "You're the only good thing I have left. I won't ruin you." And just like that, the line went dead. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. My body moved through the city like a ghost, but my heart stayed chained to a voice. I started noticing things: men lingering near my building, a black car parked across the street too often, faces that disappeared when I looked too long. Tyler noticed too. "Dude, you're paranoid," he said, but his eyes darted around the cafe. "Uneasy." "Am I?" I hissed. "Then explain why I feel like I'm being followed." Tyler leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Okay, real talk. Is this about your radio guy?" I froze. "Jesus, it is," he groaned. Evan, I don't know what the hell you've gotten into, but you're acting like you're in some Netflix thriller. But it wasn't a show. It was my life. And Adrian's. The breaking point came 2 nights later. I came home late, exhaustion chewing me raw, and froze in the hallway. My apartment door was open. Inside, everything was untouched except the radio. It was gone. I fell to my knees, hands shaking. Whoever they were, they'd taken the only thread that connected me to him. Rage lit through me like fire. Whoever they were, they weren't going to keep him from me. I was done waiting. The next night, I returned to the bridge, furious, desperate, and he was there. But this time, Adrian wasn't alone. 2 men in dark coats stood a few feet behind him, shadows with sharp edges. Adrian's face was pale, jaw set like stone. Leave. He barked when he saw me. Not without you. I shot back. One of the men stepped forward. This isn't your business. The hell it isn't. I snapped. He is my business. Adrian flinched, eyes wild with fear. Evan, go. But I didn't move. Couldn't. Because love, once it takes root, is stubborn. And mine had grown wild, dangerous, unstoppable. Adrian's eyes burned into mine, pleading and furious all at once. If you stay, you'll regret it. And I whispered back, voice steady even as my heart tore itself apart. I'd regret leaving more. The silence between us stretched razor thin. The 2 men behind Adrian didn't speak, but their presence pressed down like a weight, their stares sharp enough to cut. I could tell Adrian was holding himself back, body taut like a live wire. Evan, he said finally, his voice hoarse. Please, go home. Forget you ever met me. Forget you. My laugh was bitter, too loud against the night. Do you have any idea what it's been like? You slip into my life through static, through whispers. You haunt me, Adrian, and now you want me to just walk away. His eyes darted toward the men, then back to me, a silent warning. But my anger was louder than his fear. I don't care about them. I snapped. I care about you. And if you think I'm leaving you with these guys, you're wrong. One of the men finally spoke. His voice was cold, professional. You shouldn't be here. This doesn't concern you. The hell it doesn't. I shot back. He concerns me. Adrian's face twisted in agony. Evan, please. You don't know what you're saying. But I did. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I was saying. The taller man stepped forward, pulling something from his coat pocket. My stomach dropped. Was it a weapon? Adrian moved instantly, blocking me with his body. Don't. He growled, his voice suddenly edged with steel I hadn't heard before. The man smirked. You don't call the shots anymore. My pulse thundered in my ears. Adrian wasn't just some mysterious loner. Whoever he was tangled in something dangerous, something big. I should have run. Every rational part of me screamed to back away. But instead, I put a hand on Adrian's arm. I'm not leaving, I whispered. He turned to me, eyes blazing with something between fury and heartbreak. You don't understand. Then make me understand. I shot back. The shorter man muttered something into a radio. His words clipped. Back up. My blood ran cold. Adrian cursed under his breath. Then, with a suddenness that stole mine, he grabbed my wrist. Run. We bolted. My lungs burned, legs screaming as we tore through the underbelly of the city. Behind us, Footsteps thundered, shouts echoing off the concrete. Adrian led with precision, darting down alleys, vaulting fences, dragging me when I stumbled. He moved like someone who had done this before too many times. Finally, after what felt like hours, we ducked into an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Adrian shoved the rusted door shut and pressed his back against it. Chest heaving, I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. What the hell was that? His silence stretched too long. Then he dropped his hood, meeting my gaze with eyes that carried centuries of exhaustion. My past, he said flatly, and now, yours. For a moment, couldn't speak. My heart still raced from the chase, but his words froze me in place. What do you mean, my past? I demanded. Adrian sank onto a broken crate, running a hand through his hair. They weren't cops. Not exactly. They're people I used to work with. Work with? His laugh was hollow, if you can call it that. I used to do things for money, things people like you don't want to believe exist. I swallowed hard. Like what? His eyes locked on mine, daring me to flinch. Like finding people, hurting people, making problems disappear. My stomach twisted. I wanted to deny it, to tell him he was lying. But the truth was right there in the weight of his voice. You're telling me you were what? A hitman? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. The room tilted around me. I should have been terrified. I should have gotten up and walked away. But instead, I found myself whispering. Then why me? Why the radio? Why all of this? Adrian's face softened, the storm in his eyes breaking. Because you were the first voice I heard that didn't want something from me. You made me feel like I wasn't just what I'd done. Like I could be someone else. My throat ached. Adrian, I never should have let you hear me, he said, voice cracking. Never should have met you. But I was selfish. And now you're in danger because of me. I shook my head violently. No. Don't you dare put this all on yourself. I stayed. I chased this. I chased you. His hands clenched, nails digging into his palms. And now they won't stop until they've erased both of us. We sat in silence, the weight of his confession pressing down like a storm cloud. Finally, I whispered, what if we run? Adrian blinked. Run. Yeah. Leave the city. Start over somewhere else. They can't chase you forever. He gave me a look so tired it broke something in me. You don't know these people. They don't stop. Then we don't stop either. I said fiercely. We keep moving. Together. For a moment, something raw flickered across his face. Hope. Fear. Desire. You'd throw away your life for me? He asked, almost in disbelief. I swallowed the lump in my throat. No. I'd finally start living it. Adrian stared at me for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached out. His fingers brushed mine. Tentative. Trembling. The touch was electric. Evan. He whispered, my name breaking on his lips like a prayer. And in that moment, everything, the danger, the secrets, the shadows faded. There was only him. We leaned closer, the air between us charged. Inevitable. But just as our lips nearly touched, the sound of tires screeched outside. Headlights sliced through the cracks of the warehouse walls. Adrian froze. They found us. The warehouse exploded with light as engines roared outside. Shadows moved fast, boots pounding against pavement. Adrian's hand tightened around mine, and I could feel the tremor in his grip. Fear, adrenaline, desperation. They won't stop, he whispered. Not until I'm gone. Then we don't let them win, I said, even though my voice shook. The doors burst open, and the two men stepped inside, flanked now by more hard faces, sharp eyes, the kind of men who lived in the dark. Adrian pushed me behind him, his body a shield. But I wasn't going to stay hidden. Not anymore. The standoff felt like a lifetime. The leader spoke first, his voice cold. Adrian, you had your chance. Come quietly, or we erase you both. Adrian straightened, every muscle taut. I'm done with you. The man sneered. You don't get to be done. You belong to us. Something in me snapped. I stepped out from behind Adrian, heart in my throat but anger on my tongue. He doesn't belong to anyone. Not anymore. The men laughed, low and cruel, but Adrian didn't. His eyes burned as he looked at me, like I had said the one thing he needed to hear. The fight that followed was chaos: shouts, fists, the clang of metal. Adrian moved like a storm, every strike fueled by years of survival. But they were too many. I threw myself into it too, clumsy, desperate, catching one of them off guard with a broken plank of wood. Pain flared as another shoved me hard against the wall. Adrian roared my name, breaking free just long enough to drag me toward the back exit. We ran again, the city swallowing us, the sound of pursuit fading with each block until only silence remained. We collapsed in an alley, both gasping, both bleeding. Adrian's knuckles were raw, his face shadowed with exhaustion. This is what I am, he rasped. Violence. Running. You deserve better. I grabbed his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. You are more than what they made you do. You are the man who whispered secrets into the dark. The man who made me believe in love again. That's who you are to me. His breath shuddered, and for the first time, Adrian let himself cry. After that night, everything changed. Adrian couldn't go back, and neither could I. We made a choice to disappear together. We sold what little we had, left behind the apartment, the broken radio, the ghosts of the city. For weeks, we moved like shadows, cheap motels, back roads, names that weren't ours. It wasn't easy. It wasn't safe. But it was ours. And slowly, the weight Adrian carried began to lift. He told me more of his story, how he had been dragged into that world as a teenager, how loyalty had been forced out of fear, how he had dreamed of music once but traded melodies for survival. I listened. I held him. And with each confession, I loved him more. Months later, we found ourselves in a small coastal town, far from the steel and glass of New York. Life was slower there. Kinder. We rented a tiny apartment above a bakery, the smell of bread seeping into our mornings. Adrian found work fixing boats at the docks. I picked up shifts at the cafe. We lived simply, quietly, learning how to breathe again. Sometimes, late at night, he would hum to himself unfinished songs, fragments of who he had been before. I'd lie beside him, listening, heart aching with the beauty of it. You should write again, I told him once. He shook his head. I wouldn't know where to start. So I handed him a notebook. Start here. Start now. And he did. Love didn't erase the past. It didn't fix everything. Adrian still woke some nights drenched in sweat, shadows clinging to him like chains. I still carried the fear of losing him, the memory of headlights cutting through warehouse walls. But love gave us something else, something stronger than fear. It gave us tomorrow. One morning, as the sun broke over the ocean, Adrian pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. "You saved me," he whispered. I smiled through tears. "No, you saved yourself. I just reminded you why." He kissed me then, slow and certain, the kind of kiss that rewrites everything. And in that moment, I knew whatever storms came, whatever ghosts tried to follow, we would face them together. Because love, once it takes root, doesn't let go. And ours had bloomed from static, from shadows, from the impossible into something real, something forever. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.